Good afternoon from the Harriman Institute at Columbia University in New York City. I am Tanya Domi, an adjunct professor of international and public affairs and a faculty affiliate of the Harriman Institute, where I have taught in our Balkan Studies program for the past 13 years. The Harriman Institute at Columbia University is one of the world's leading academic institutions devoted to Russian, Eurasian, and East European studies. Our mission is to serve our community at the university and beyond by supporting research, instruction, and dialogue, sponsoring vibrant and multidisciplinary events that bring together our extraordinary resources of faculty, students, and alumni. We are committed to training the next generation of regional specialists to play leadership roles in setting the academic and scholarly agenda, making policy, and challenging accepted truths about how we study our rapidly changing world. The screening of Jasmila Žbanić's Quo Vadis, Aida is a dramatic depiction of the Srebrenica genocide. We are honored to have screened the film this week and are grateful to Jasmila's generosity in sharing it with the Harriman Institute. As has been pointed out by a number of Balkan scholars during this past week, this film is very important, and even more so given the events that took place in the United States Capitol on January 6th. The Srebrenica genocide is a tragedy and serves as an illustration to the world when nationalism overtakes governments led by men without conscience or respect for human lives. The Srebrenica genocide is also the horrific outcome of political constructed hatred directed at Muslims. Nationalism consumes everything in its path. We have much more to learn, but we will never forget the victims who perished on July 11th, 1995 in Srebrenica, Bosnia-Herzegovina. I would like to thank the staff of the Harriman Institute, and a particular thanks to our co-sponsors, the Bosnia-Herzegovina Film Festival based in New York City, the Post-Conflict Research Center based in Sarajevo, and the Srebrenica Memorial Center in Potocari. It's now my honor to introduce our guest, and our guest of honor today is Jasmila Žbanić, who was born in Sarajevo in 1974, is a graduate of the Academy of Dramatic Arts, Theater, and Film Directing Department. Before filmmaking, she also worked as a puppeteer in the Vermont-based Bread and Puppet Theater and as a clown in a Lee DeLong workshop. Her feature debut, Grbavica, won the 2006 Berlinale Golden Bear, and the AFI, American Film Institute Fest Grand Jury Prize Grand Prix Odyssey of the European Council, and was sold to 40 territories with great success. Nomination and Best Film and Best Actress European Film Award. Her future debut, Grbavica, also was followed by her second feature, On the Path, which debuted in 2010. Žbanić's third feature, For Those Who Can Tell No Tales, made its world premiere at the Toronto Film Festival and won the 2013 Femme de Cinéma Award at Les Arcs European Film Festival. Love Island premiered at Locarno Film Festival Grand Palace and was screened at TV Arte France before more than 500,000 viewers. All of her films were produced through Deblokada, an artist association that she has founded. Velma Saric is a researcher, journalist, peace-building expert, and human rights defender from Sarajevo, Bosnia. Velma is the founder and president of the Post-Conflict Research Center. She is founder and editor-in-chief of Balkan Diskurs. She also was a Columbia University Institute for the Study of Human Rights Fellow and she has produced and worked on a number of publications and films about the 1992 to 95 Bosnian War. Dr. Emir Suljagić is currently the director of the Srebrenica Genocide Memorial Center. He is a survivor of the Srebrenica genocide. He has also been a journalist and a politician in Bosnia. He served as Minister of Education of the Sarajevo Canton between January 2011 and February 2012. He's also served as a Deputy Minister of Defense. He is author of Postcards from the Grave, first account of a Srebrenica survivor to be published in English in 8 other world languages. Sandra Orlovic is a human rights lawyer and the former executive director of the Humanitarian Law Center in Belgrade, Serbia. Sandra is a graduate of the Belgrade Law Faculty and the Northwestern University Pritzker School of Law, where she earned her LLM in 2017. She is currently based in Baghdad, Iraq. Dijana Jelača is a faculty member in the film department at Brooklyn University. She is author of Dislocated Screen Memory, Narrating Trauma in Post-Yugoslav Cinema, also the co-author of Film Feminisms, A Global Introduction, and she has co-edited several scholarly volumes, including the Routledge Companion to Cinema and Gender. Jelača's research interests include transnational feminist film studies and women's film history. We are honored to have Dijana serve as our moderator today for this special event. Please have the chair now, Dijana.
Thank you so much, Tanya, for your generous introduction. Welcome everyone on my behalf as well. And thank you to the Harriman Institute for making this event happen. And thank you for our panelists. And of course, most of all, thank you, Jasmila, for being here and for generously making your film available for all of us to watch. I want to start by acknowledging emotions, which often get lost in intellectual leaning conversations. We are all wrestling with a lot of emotions right now, all of us here, and I'm sure all of you in the audience. And it is a really difficult conversation. And there's no easy answer to the question of how do we address and speak about the unspeakable atrocity that gives it full justice. Can we ever achieve that full justice and account for all the stories, the myriad stories of trauma and loss? And we still have to continue trying. One way or another. We all have the ethical responsibility to continue to bear witness. We are now a quarter of a century away from the event, and unfortunately, some people have lived in the state of perpetual denial that this event ever happened. So here we get to the role of cinema in all of this, and this is something that is a scholarly and personal deep interest of mine. So a cinema is an incredibly important vehicle for remembering, memorializing, countering denial, and inviting empathy. And Quo Vadis, Aida is, in my humble opinion, one of the most important post-Yugoslav films to come out and address the major atrocity that happened during the Bosnian War, the biggest atrocity, the genocide since World War II in Europe. So Jasmila, without further ado, I want to start with you. I know that this film was long in the making, and I can only imagine the level of pressure, responsibility, and the weight you carried on your shoulders while making it, because you're telling a story of devastating events that actually happened. I know a lot of historical deep research went into looking at the records, talking to survivors, and anything you can get your hands on. So my first question to you would be, how did you balance staying true to historical facts of the event itself, of what transpired, while also maintaining your creative license and artistic freedom as a writer and director who is making a narrative film about these events? So tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you very much for this event, and hello to everybody who's watching. So when we started making this film, it's not me, there's Damir Ibrahimovic and team of the Blokada. We thought we know a lot because being Bosnians, we thought we have a lot of facts already known to us. But actually, when you start digging and when you start talking to people and reading, you realize how much you don't know. So for me, most important thing was not to make mistake, you know, not to be superficial in using any of these events that happened. I was really trying to be as punctual, as ready for every event that I took, that I put light on every side of what was happening. Saying that, it meant that as a Bosnian, I had my own vision of what happened. And when I started researching, this changed a little bit, and you know, I had to understand deeper what every character in the film. My mission was never to make propaganda or to make a film which is for a nation. I was making film which I wish to stay for longer, for next generations. And I was feeling very, very responsible, first of all, for survivors who were there, who are still here living with us. I always told them, communicating with them, that if I managed to have 1% of 0.1 of what they survived, just a bit of emotions, I would be satisfied as a filmmaker, because it's not possible to put everything in 100 minutes.
Absolutely, no single film can tell the full story about an event of such horrifying scale. Every single story, personal loss and trauma, and loss of life, loss of family members. So, but tell us a little bit. You mentioned the survivors, your conversations with them prior to making the film, and the responsibility you felt. What have been the conversations with them after having seen the film, if you've had the opportunity? And we will later hear from Emir as well, and want to hear his thoughts about the film.
Yeah, I mean, I was checking every stage of filmmaking, script, during the script level, you know, I was checking stuff, and, you know, while filming, I had people who were checking if everything is correct, starting from military uniforms that I have no idea about, and many other stuff. But for me, it was also very important responsibility of an artist, of a filmmaker, that I have to use film language to convey the story. I thought I know how to get audience in the film. That was very difficult part of filmmaking, because you can't explain, you know, Srebrenica tragedy didn't start on July 11. It started in beginning of war in 92. So this is something that people don't know about. These people already had 3.5 years of war when they were expelled from the city. So it was very hard how to explain everything, because when you make film about Holocaust, people don't have to explain much. We all know what happened. But when you make film about Srebrenica, it's not the same, because people don't know basic things. I mean, talking about wide audience, some of them never heard of Srebrenica. We tested film like in Poland with a student of my editor. 16 of them were there, 6 heard about Srebrenica, 10 never heard word Srebrenica. It's Poland, which is very close to us. So I had to be very careful how to get people in the film, and how to keep the tension, and still be precise with events that happened there.
Mm-hmm. And one place where this is most evident, the balance of historical facts and then your own vision, artistic vision, is in the fact that obviously we have Ratko Mladić, the character of Ratko Mladić. And I believe for the Dutch officers who are in the film, you use their actual names. Am I correct about that? Yes. And then your protagonist, Aida, she is a fictional character. So tell us about that balance, and why did you decide to have a woman be your protagonist in this film?
Yeah, so I tried many different approaches. You know, for me, what was very interesting about Srebrenica is all this political side of what was going on while people were there and not being aware of negotiations about, you know, who is sending facts to whom, who is deciding for whom, when these deals were made, not to help, not to react. So this was also one version of the script where I thought, oh, but how will I, with this political level, how will I have people emotionally involved in the film? That was my intention, that people for this 100 of minutes, at least a little bit, try to be in shoes of people who were there, you know. So I was thinking how to do it, and I had a lot of tryouts and failures. And then in one moment, there was a decision that a woman who is translator, who is between these two worlds, between UN and between Bosnians, also being a Bosnian and employee, to have this ambivalent position, I thought then I'm able to show both things. So that's how it was during these 5 years of work, how script developed.
Mm-hmm. And this is this actually harkens back to your film Grbavica, another defining post-Yugoslav film and a pioneering film that was the first feature-length narrative film to address mass rape. And you you were informed by the stories of the women who went through such horrifying experiences. But the character of Esma was also a fictional character, which was amalgamation of the different stories you've heard. So it's interesting how you position Aida is sort of in between. And the film is also dedicated to the women of Srebrenica, the mothers, sisters, family members, survivors who have lost so much. In one of your interviews for Bosnian media, you mentioned that you didn't want to make this film for a long time, that you kept waiting for someone else to make this film, and you were hoping that it would just happen. Was there a turning point, or what was the turning point for you where you decided no one else is doing it, it will have to be me after all?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I never did this film, you know, in first place. And when, you know, I was thinking about Srebrenica, I thought this deserves and this has to be a movie. But I knew how many traps is involved in the subject, because it's still such a heated political issue in our region, because of denial of genocide, because of you know, political manipulations. So I thought, you know, stepping into this field is absolutely horrifying. And after I did 4 films as a director, I felt, okay, now I'm ready. As a professional, I know how to do it. And I felt, it's kind of state of mind where you can't go on with your life if you don't do it. It is feeling for all our team.
I see. So it felt like a moral imperative to do it. Speaking of reception, when you first screened the film at the Memorial Center in Potocari, you specifically wanted young people from all over Bosnia to be the first audience for the film. Can you talk about why it was important for you that it be young people? And those are people who probably, I mean, in fact, most likely don't have living memory of this event and probably weren't even born during the war. So why was it important for you for young people from all ethnic groups from all over Bosnia to come and watch the film first?
Yeah, I remember we were sitting with Emir Suljagić and our colleagues and thinking how to do this film, how to make premiere of the film in Memorial Center. And we both said, let's do it for young people, not inviting on a very first premiere, on very first screening, politicians, ambassadors, whoever. Let's invite young people, because for me, maybe also because I also have a child who is 20, I think these kids have to be free from past. They didn't, they were not born when Srebrenica happened. They have to know about it. I'm not for forgetting. I'm not for let's go on and forget what happened. No, I think they should know what happened, but they need to be emancipated from these narratives, not being victimized by it, or not being, accused by any narrative, because they have nothing to do with it. I really wanted to give them a film to say, just look at it. It's painful, but when you go over it, you are free. So this was our idea, that we move things towards new generations. Film is not made to accuse anybody, but it's made for future, that we have better future, that this never happens, and that we are able to be in each other's positions to understand each other's pain. I think this is crucial, the empathy and solidarity between people. And I think film allows this, because this process of identification with the others is possible. And Emir can also tell you, when we had this first screening, the first person who stood up was a young man from Republika Srpska, who said, he cried through the whole film. And he said that he would love that his friends see this film to understand what they are considering as a heroism. They should see this film to understand what is that heroic, and these what they appreciate. I think this was biggest achievement for me, to have this man talking to us.
Absolutely, and I completely agree with you when it comes to the power of cinema to, in a unique way, evoke empathy towards another, someone that we don't necessarily have much in common, put ourselves in their shoes and convey the story this way. And I know in our conversations prior to today's event, you told me about having heard from other people from all over Bosnia conveying similar emotions, not really knowing, and how much it mattered to them. So the power of film. And speaking of which, can you talk about the reception of the film in the region, in Bosnia in particular, but also the region? Has the film been shown, for example, in Republika Srpska, the Serbian majority part of Bosnia, and in Serbia? What have been the reactions?
Yeah, unfortunately, film was not screened in Republika Srpska in cinemas, because owners were afraid that government would punish them in this way or the other. There is no official ban to say this film is not allowed, but the fear, because it's a dictatorship, so the fear is bigger than anything else. So we thought the same thing was in Serbia. Nobody wanted to distribute the film, so we thought to have film on a VOD platform, which will allow people to see it at home without any fear. And after that, we had really, really good reactions. First of all, many media in Serbia were very, respectful. They watched the film. They, we had interviews which were very, very respectful. I had feeling that they are supporting the film. And it was majority of media. Of course, there are some newspapers which are controlled by certain percentage or certain elite who have war narratives and war approach. So they were sending really very bad messages and switching the facts and, inviting war criminals to talk about the film, that film is anti-Serbian and all these things, which really sounded like propaganda from 90s. But they are also very present, and they have really huge number of issues. People are buying these newspapers, unfortunately.
And yeah, and they have a lot of influence, unfortunately. But it is encouraging to hear that the film has resonated in the region across ethnic divides. And as you described it, this event and the war itself still is holding the region hostage in many ways. So this could be an emancipatory exercise in coming to terms, really, and moving on, acknowledging what happened and the truth of what happened. With respect to I now want to go into the film before I include the rest of our panel and hear their thoughts. I just quickly go to the film, and there's so many things that we could address, and I already mentioned it is an incredibly gut-wrenching and powerful film. I want to go straight to the end of it. We see children at the end. Aida is a teacher. She is living her life as best she can. And considering how you wanted to show the film to the youth of Bosnia first, and seeing these children in the film, and in this devastating scene where we have the perpetrators and survivors sitting in the same room as parents and watching their children perform, and the children doing this really symbolic action of opening and closing their eyes, was there, and we end with Aida's face, just observing this scene. Tell us a little bit about that ending. Was the suggestion there that the hope stays with the young generations to do the work that unfortunately their parents and the older generations failed to do? Was there a hope inscribed there in some sense, or was there still a cautionary tale?
Yeah, it for me was more a question. It can go this way or that way. These kids can open their eyes, or they can be closed eyes, new soldiers doing the same things what their parents did. So for me, it's mostly a question. And in this atmosphere, Aida and her action that she continues to work with kids and the question also what she will teach them.
Exactly what the school curriculum would be. So with that, and of course, it's a cautionary tale. The ending itself is a sort of a warning, even if we may inscribe some hope in the generations to come. And I was thinking about this with respect to its broader resonance, not just for Bosnia and the region, but the world seems to be in the perpetual state of on the verge of another atrocity happening somewhere in the world. And Tanya mentioned the latest events in this country, the United States, and how this story can resonate as a cautionary tale as well in important ways. But with that, I would like to bring in our other panelists, and I would like to start with Emir Suljagić first. Emir, are you with us? Good evening to you as well, and thank you for being with us. So, as the survivor of the genocide Srebrenica, and as a person involved in both in politics and with the Memorial Center in Potečari, give us your perspective on the importance of the film and your thoughts on the film itself.
Well, first of all, good evening, and thanks for having me. Well, I've actually said many of those things earlier on when we actually premiered the film at the Srebrenica Memorial. I had no doubt about wanting it there. And the important thing to know is that the film was, to the extent that it can be approved or endorsed by the survivors, was endorsed by the mothers, by the families of the victims of July 1995. And in that regard, so that's one thing to keep in mind. And I was listening carefully while Jasmila was talking, and I guess that the importance of her getting the facts straight and the amount of time and the amount of attention that she dedicated to getting the facts straight is part of the reason that the film was very warmly received among the survivors community. Now, the other question, the one that you sort of posed earlier at the very beginning of the film, of the debate, I'm sorry, the issue of facts versus artistic license. I think we should also, all of us, remember this is a feature film. This is not a documentary. This is, Jasmila had one way to tell one particular story, and she, had her own, and she did that in her own way. And that story, most importantly, speaks to people. Obviously, it talks to people. It touched many hearts, and the facts of it, the different stories. She could have easily made a completely different movie and achieved the same effect, the same result, told the same story. She could have picked any one of the 6,000 people who were in the compound during those days and told their story. This is how she did this thing, and I think it comes it couldn't come at a more important point in time. I mean, we're at the juncture where whether Srebrenica is going to finally get recognized as what it is, or we're going to forever have this debate and keep fighting off attempts to create an alternative narrative, a counterfactual narrative. And I think this is where the film is actually couldn't be more important in that regard. And I'm really glad that I've been part of sort of showing it to the Bosnian public for the first time. So that's, I guess, a very long-winded answer to your question. I'm sorry if I'm not really coherent. If I'm not.
No. You make perfect sense, of course. So you're addressing very important issues here, and thank you for returning to that question of a creative license versus giving taking responsibility, giving due credit to actual historical facts, and the balancing act that is done when one is making a narrative film versus a documentary in that sense. And that is a really important issue to address here. And thank you for your thoughts on that. I would like to include Velma as well in this conversation, because I know, Velma, that in your activism, in your work in peace building, that you have used film and visual media quite a bit for pedagogical purposes. Can you tell us more where that impulse comes from, and why you see the role of film and visual media so important for what you do, and where Quo Vadis Aida fits in all of this? How you see it? How do you see it influencing the work that you do and the effects that your work has?
Thank you so much, Dijana. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Harriman Institute and my university, Columbia, also all partners who help us to do this event, also to Jasmila and all panelists. So yes, for less than 10 years, I would say, as long we exist at Post-Conflict Research Center, we have been using film as the main tool, I would say, for educational purposes or educational curricula, which we are creating, unfortunately, still for non-formal education, because we do struggle to entrance the schools. We unfortunately still are not able to teach even peace building, which we do hope that somehow will change in the years coming. In a country where we still have pure example of segregation, if I can say like that, 2 schools under one roof, According to OSC, we have 56 schools under one roof where kids are physically separated through different curricula, but also physically they cannot interact between each other even during the school breaks. We do find film and we do find creative multimedia and art important tool, because we did realize that young people, they react much more better and they are much more interested for new interactive approaches to peace building and learning about past, especially with the difficult topics like dealing with the past. We had experience of featuring and producing our own documentaries, but also featuring documentaries and films made by other artists or filmmakers. Our first big success actually came when we proudly have been working with Angelina Jolie with her feature film In a Land of Blood and Honey. We have been using this film as a tool actually to launch international protocol for documenting sexual violence in crime, which British government took a lead in. And we incorporate this film into launching the protocol and organizing youth workshops where we were actually being able to speak with young people about this horrific and difficult topic of mass rape and sexual violence. So this film, which Jasmila did, and I congratulate her, it was extremely brave things to do. It was difficult also. I do know that she was focusing her film on these couple of days in Potocari, in battery factories. And that is showing how actually complex Srebrenica genocide is. If you can have a film only about these 3-4 days, and if you can, focus the whole film only on these events, then you do realize how difficult it is actually to portray Srebrenica genocide. We will be able to use this film to speak to young people, especially now in the time of denial, and this klima where war criminals are actually celebrated as the heroes, to sparkle dialogue among young people, to show them, to portray them one small fragment of Srebrenica genocide, and hopefully to combining storytelling and all these important parts that we can actually, start to speak freely about the recent past. So I congratulate Jasmila. I'm very thankful as a Bosnian that she did this film.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And this actually harkens back to something that Emir said as well. And it reminds me, speaking of denial and how the role of cinema, and not just cinema, but openly addressing these issues. 5 years ago at the Harriman, we had a 20th anniversary commemoration of the Srebrenica genocide, where we screened a short documentary and had a panel discussion. And I spoke then about the fact that we are now 20 years away, which means that a whole generation of young people has come of age, either with the fact of this event happening or with the alternative parallel universe of the denial of this event happening. So how do we undo the latter? Is it possible? Is it too late? And of course, it's never too late. And one of the things that I always focus about in my work is the importance of film in all of this. So thank you for sharing your thoughts on that, Velma. And I want to also include Sandra. Thank you, Sandra, for being here with us. As a human rights lawyer, tell us about your reactions to the film, specifically when it comes to the dramatic or narrative rendering of some of the factual events that have happened, and what in the film struck you the most or resonated with you the most that you would like to address here.
Thank you, and thank you for invitation. And I want to thank Jasmila and her crew for giving us such an important movie for the whole region. I was struck really, and I think that's a really powerful feature of this movie, how to which extent Jasmila and her crew were faithful to the historical record or judicial records about Srebrenica genocide. As somebody who read a lot about that, literally after a couple of minutes of film, you can see that the facts are got straight, and that not just these broad strokes, but also some of the important details. For example, the fascination of General Mladić with the media, his plan to have media there to present his kindness towards a Muslim population in Srebrenica. This is a historical fact, and I'm glad that that is in the movie, Jasmila's movie. I also think that I don't know whether this was Jasmila's intention, but when I was looking through the legal lenses, I thought that one of my impressions was that Jasmila actually laid out the legal case about the genocide. So you don't have to be a lawyer to understand that what you are looking is really the most horrific and the most brutal crime ever known to humanity. And there are a couple of things in the movie that really, as I said, they are really faithful to judicial record, and also they're really, really well presented. One of the things that caught my attention is something that the Hague Tribunal also established as a part and as a proof of the genocidal intent, and that is the indiscriminate killing of both civilians and those who are probably who were in the army of Bosnia-Herzegovina. There was no slight attempt on the side of the Bosnian Serbs to try to distinguish between civilians and combatants. So that's something that is established by the Hague Tribunal. And that is something that is very well presented in the movie. The second thing is the industrial level of organization of the killing and the busing of the people who were in the factory. The buses some of them are from Serbia, some of them are Bosnian. This is really something, and also the end of the movie, which is telling us that that the organization of the burial and reburial was also on a very high level, and that it was also very systemically done. And the third thing is obviously we cannot escape this feeling of dehumanization of Bosnian Muslims that happened at the beginning of the war on the side of Bosnian Serbs, which I also belong. I belong to that group, and I can say that I personally also went through that propaganda, and I felt I started as a kid who was receiving all that information from the propaganda. I felt I started changing. And I felt that toxicity of toxic nature of that propaganda on myself. So that hatred, that dehumanization of the Bosniaks, which was in the heart of genocide, I think that was very well depicted. The other impression for me is something maybe that goes beyond the law. And beyond the legal perspective, and that is something that is related to the second part of the movie. And I must say that the second part of the movie is something that it was really hard for me to watch that second, even harder than the first part. The part where we actually facing I would say this, I don't want to offend survivors of Srebrenica genocide, but I'm saying like we as a survivor society, when we can look ourselves in the second half of the movie, and we can look into the failure of something that we call the facing with the past process. Unfortunately, I think we are, for all the reasons that were laid out in the movie, I think we failed in that process. And this is also the important impression after watching the movie, is that Srebrenica didn't end, and that story still goes on. we are still living in Srebrenica and its aftermath. Srebrenica is not a distant historical event that we can evaluate without emotions, as you mentioned at the beginning, but it's really something that we live. Of course, families of missing and those who were killed, they have the toughest time to live after Srebrenica, but we as a society, we still live in denial, live in not only denial. I think that we, in many cases, in actually probably mainstream in Serbia and the Serbian part of Bosnia is quite often glorifying crime, which is even worse than just a simple denial. So yeah, and I will finish with one of the scenes that I think that there is a very strong analogy between the past and present, and that is the scene when the probably Serb family is sitting on the balcony and drinking coffee while we are hearing the sounds of mass execution, and going on with their drinking coffee. And I think that this is still us. This is still most of the region, especially when it comes, of course, to Serb group. We are still, in a way, drinking coffee and pretending nothing has happened.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sandra, for your deep thoughts, and I especially appreciate both your expert opinion from a law scholar and a practitioner, but also your personal perspective. And I can speak for myself personally to say that your story resonates similar on my end as well. And also noticed in that coffee drinking scene, there's a child riding a bike on the street, sort of in a carefree manner while the slaughter is happening. Jasmila, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to anything that our panelists have said, or do you have any thoughts about what they have said? I have a couple more questions for you before we turn it to the audience, because I think we have a really big audience, and there's a lot of questions and we're not going to be able to get to all of them, but we're going to try to make a selection.
Yeah, I would like to talk a lot, but I will just grab a few things. What Sandra said and what I mentioned before, that people who grew up, we all grew up in propaganda, so there are many forms of it. But what is possible is to get out of it when you see things with open heart. The problem is that kids today don't have opportunity to see or to analyze or to interpret. I don't think even if we put the film on VOD platform that kids will go and watch it. If it's in a media that film is anti-Serbian, they will probably not, in Republika Srpska or Serbia, they will probably not see it. But those who see it, they change. And I think this is a big hope for all of us. And what Velma mentioned, if we are able to put it in schools, in a curriculum, in side things, that I think it's possible that even with such a strong propaganda, which was happening for years and years, we all grew up in it, in the school system, through religion, through media, but there is always a crack that film can bring, and other art forms. I believe in art a lot. So there are cracks where you can put light in people's closed brain or closed hearts. And I witnessed that kind of transformation, which for me is, that's my subject, transformation and change, because I really believe in it. I believe Bosnia could be a fantastic country and has fantastic people, as well as war criminals and terrible people. But I really think it's possible that we do this change with more influence. I have examples like in Stolac, what Velma mentioned, there are kids who are never seeing each other, not in school, not in after school activities, because they are so separated. They are entering schools from different entrances. But we did film workshops with them. And for 12, 15 years, depending how old they were not able to, they were never talk to each other. And only in 3 days, offering them films and workshop and possibility to be together, offering them a safe pillow that it's okay to be together, it's okay to talk, it's okay to love each other. After the workshop, they were falling in love with each other. And for me, this is huge hope that this brainwashing of, as I said, church, as media, parents, is not so strong like these cultural and human things. People can still recognize it even if they are brainwashed. And this is my big hope.
That is a hopeful note, and I like how you described cinema, among other forms of art, being able to create a crack in that armor that has really been calcifying for a long time. But cracks do appear, and it is possible to break the mold. With this, I do want to turn it over to Tanya. I know we have a lot of questions, Tanya.
Yes, I just want to make a comment before we move to questions, and that is we've gotten several comments from scholars and teachers that want to purchase a film, they want to use it to teach. And I've said this to many of my friends, including people that are on this panel, that my teaching has dramatically changed in the last 10 years in teaching human rights in particular, where I use film. And that's one of the reasons why I'm working with the Post-Conflict Research Center. Using film to teach is very powerful. I mean, as Sandra's indicated, those of us who know human rights law, we look at the transcripts, we look at court judgments. Those are difficult after reading them repeatedly and repeatedly, but using film, I actually believe is really an exceptionally good way, positive way to break through. And so that's one of the reasons why I have partnered with BH Film Festival to screen a film at least every year. And that's why we invited Jasmila, because this film is so important. There's been a number of comments about triumphalism, denial of genocide. We are experiencing this and have been experiencing this as well in the United States of America when it comes to racism. And so it's an important time in the world because the world is globally illiberal and undemocratic trending at this time, which is very, very disturbing. So for those of you who do film, like Jasmila and Velma and others that I know, you're bringing the light to the world, and we all have to keep bringing our lights. So, Gianna, we have these questions, and I sent them to you in the chat.
Do you want me to read some of them?
Oh, sure. I mean, well, let me. I think the first one you should definitely bring, because it's your colleague, Emir Suljagić.
Sure.
Who weighed in here.
My dear friend and colleague Emir Suljagić, who's a co-programmer of the Bosnian-Herzegovinan Film Festival here in New York City. Emir says, congratulations on this remarkable, masterfully crafted and important film, Jasmila. I very much appreciated your comment about this film being the one that helps us find a better future. I hope it finds its way into school curricula across the region. Now, remembering the original TV footage, I felt that the film's cinematography, as well as the costumes, were, for the lack of a better word, too clean and perhaps too calm. This is maybe very subjective, and maybe I cannot imagine any other aesthetic aside from the blurry VHS we saw back in the 90s. But I was wondering how you approached this with your DP, and if those who survived the events made any comments about the aesthetics after watching your film. Thank you. Several scholars and teachers would like to purchase it. Tanya already mentioned that. So, right. So DP and the aesthetics of the film. Make sure to unmute yourself.
Unmute, yes.
Yes.
No, I was, when I was talking to Christine Meyer, who is my cinematography, director of photography for all my films, we decided not to make film as look like as documentary footage, because people had already imagination through watching all these YouTube videos or news, and they formed their opinion and their feelings already with these images. We wanted to enter a completely different zone of their brain, eyes, and hearts by creating different kind of visualization. And we really wanted to stay always with human level. You know, like when we were discussing what film tools we need to use, I don't know English word for crane, this
the crane camera.
Yes,
I think it's crane. Mm-hmm.
Crane. We said to producer, we don't need this because we don't want these spectacular shots. We don't want to make war looking spectacular in any way. We want to show it as banality of evil, and with our camera, who will be always in a level of people and never showing violence in a spectacular way. Or I feel very often, even in anti-war movies, that directors, it's mostly men, they feel or put inside of these scenes eros, like they are excited about the violence. And for me, maybe because I survived war in Sarajevo, there is nothing spectacular about violence. So this was our decisions, which were ethical and aesthetical.
Absolutely, that's a really important point, and I absolutely agree with you that in a lot of war films that purport to declare themselves anti-war, the violence and the devastation of war is still rendered in aesthetically pleasing terms, which is a strange juxtaposition. I think some of the most famous examples, like Apocalypse Now, for example, and this is something that I often talk to my students about the ethics of that, this actually leans on something that I wanted to ask you. You do not depict the killings, the murders themselves, except in that scene, which I think it's a movie theater or it's some kind of theater, and we see the guns. We don't see, and then we hear the horrifying sounds of those gunshots from automatic weapons, but we don't see the death of the men who were lined up there. But what is yelled at them just before they die is, now you're going to see the real movie. So tell us about that. Why that line, and what guided your decision to not actually depict the killings themselves?
So killings took place very often in cultural centers, and this change of cultural centers into places of killings is, for me, horrifying. I really thought the audience is able to imagine by themselves what happened, and that is more, at least in my opinion, it's even harder when you don't see, people who are having last breath. So it's also out of respect towards this family that I had, that it was not possible for me to see them in this way. And I think it works for audience that they imagine it in even that it goes into their hearts.
Absolutely. And I see a lot of comments where people are congratulating you and thanking you for your powerful film. I see also questions about the role of teaching again, and about the role of curricula. So about the ending in particular, indicating the multi-ethnic schools and teaching as a way forward. Was that also the rationale? One of the questions was for making your protagonist a teacher.
there were several reasons why I thought it's good that she's teacher. One, that she speaks English, that is also kind of justified, that she has her students among soldiers, because I wanted to show how war put such a close people against each other. And for me, it was very important that she goes on with her work, which is directed towards the future. But I was also wanting to put the question mark, what she will teach them, what she didn't teach them before, and what she will teach them now. Mm-hmm. So for me, this is important questions. What shall we teach our kids after Srebrenica? And the whole thing has to be differently. We have to see everything in a different light.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned, we are now 25 years after the war, and that's a quarter of a century. And what has been taught is a very segregated style of curriculum, even within a single school, building, two schools under the same roof. And in BHFF, we have covered this topic through documentary films. We talked about the regional reception. The film has played the major film festivals, including Venice and Toronto. Can you tell us about what the responses from international audiences have been to the film?
Yeah, I mean, we were really happy to realize that people see the film in a very emotional way, and they could understand it. And even if they never heard of Srebrenica, they are able to really follow it and not sleep days after seeing the film. This is the response we get from people. So many people also understand that it is also about our time. It's not only about what happened 25 years in Balkan country, but it's also about them. Like, we have 9 European countries as our co-producers. And I remember one professor in Poland, she said, after your film, I was thinking, who of my neighbors would do this to me? Because climate in Poland is so bad today that she can imagine things like this. So I think it talks also about our political situation in the world. It resonates to people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I see another comment from the audience thanking you for such an important film and congratulating you. And our guest says, I think that the film's rhythm is astonishing. The change in the rhythm and imagery in the last 20 minutes, and this is something that Sandra has also touched upon, produces such a strong effect on the viewer. Also, the title is very wisely chosen. Aida is a Christ-like figure whose post-genocide fate and return to Srebrenica stands not only for the answer to the question from the title, but as the allegory of the entire post-genocide Bosnia-Herzegovina. Could Jasmila say a few words about her choice of the title and her directing choices for the last 20 minutes of the film?
Yes, this is from Alexander Boskovic, our colleague, who's a lecturer in BCS at Columbia University.
Another dear colleague of ours.
Yeah, another dear, yeah.
Yeah, so it was perfectly explained already in the question about the title. And I always knew I don't want to finish film with atrocities, but with the question, how do we go on after this? Is it possible to live after genocide? In which way? And what are the consequences? The stories after what these people survived they were equally devastating. Just the facts, how they were searching for bodies, how they were searching for information about mass grave. It was another film. But of course, I have to squeeze all of that to kind of epilogue and choose a moment that is possible, that we feel that time passed, and what are the what is the life today.
This actually, sorry, Tanya, just quickly wanted to say this actually harkens back to something. For a lot of people, this search is still happening. It's a never-ending search. And Jasmila, you have very powerfully addressed this in your documentary, Red Rubber Boots. I see a question from a film professor, a colleague from University of Florida, Barbara Mennel, who actually asks about that particular scene of going through that hall and looking at the remains and sort of hoping, but perhaps also not hoping in some desperate way to recognize the remains of one's loved ones. Can you talk about that scene a little bit?
Yes, I will do this, but I would like to check with Emir how many people are still not found. Maybe he can just tell us about that.
Sorry, the actual number is 1,600, somewhere close to 1,600. So that's the number of people that we were looking, and that's, you know, it's getting increasingly hard. And part of the reason that it's getting increasingly hard is that witnesses are dying. There is a prevailing wall of silence around it. I mean, locally, it's interesting. Locally, we all kind of know who did what here. You know, I had a conversation today at this place where I usually hang out after work. It's owned by a returnee, and you know, it's kind of a small enclave. For me, a lot of, you know, life after 1995 was staying in enclaves. And anyway, so we were having this discussion, and we were talking about garbage disposal, and then somehow the conversation geared into the role of garbage disposal, the municipal garbage disposal, in removing the bodies from the town streets in 1995, and that's documented. And once again, we know who did what, pretty much, but people simply refuse to talk about it. People simply refuse to tell us where the mass graves are. And so many steps in it was so systematic. So many steps were taken to ensure that the bodies are destroyed, removed, that it's really hard to get to the bottom of you know, to end this search. So that's the state of affairs. I'm afraid, and I'm not very hopeful, to be honest.
Thank you, Emir. It's truly devastating that
Yeah,
this
Emir,
still
I don't
goes
know
on.
if everybody knows he lives there.
Well, yeah, I work here. I mean, that's a fair description of what I do here. I spend a lot of my time here naturally, but a lot of my work is actually, more of my work right now is outside Srebrenica, outside Podgorica, because there is nothing here in terms of what we need as an institution. There is no knowledge here. There is no expertise here. You know, we have to go out and reach out, and I'm certainly abusing this opportunity to invite people to get in touch with us and to see how they can help us build an institution that will honor the memory, properly honor the memory of the people killed in July 1995, as well as those before them. I'm you know, as Jasmila put it, it didn't happen in vacuum. It didn't happen in political vacuum, military vacuum. It didn't happen, even if you want, in cultural vacuum, and that also needs to be put out there. People need to understand where this is coming from.
My big wish is that we build a little cinema in Memorial Center, so that
actually, I think today I identified the location within the memorial complex where I'd like to see a cinema. So, yeah, I mean, this would be a great opportunity.
It would be important that people can it would be important that people can see it in the really proper conditions. And of course, Quo Vadis Aida will be there in Memorial Center as one of the items that can make things closer to people. And I didn't forget to answer the question about identifications. I was a student when I made my diploma film called Red Rubber Boots. It was a movie following a woman who was searching for her two kids in a mass graves. One kid was 4.5 years and the other one was 6 months old. The only way to recognize them was to have that she was hoping that red rubber boots will remain after so many years. So I spent a lot of time in really going with the Commission for Missing People in mass graves, on identifications. And this identification that is in a film is very similar to what was happening. We filmed it in a way that we put bodies and we didn't say main actress where bodies of her sons are. So actress entered the hall without knowing. And we talked that it's important that she had, like what your colleague mentioned, hope that maybe she will not find them and maybe they are alive, but also knowing the reality that they are dead and that she wants to bury them and be able to go to their graves and make this kind of closure. Because many mothers, you know, a lot of them are still living only to find bodies and to die. They don't have any other reason to live. They're only there to find bodies because who else would recognize them? Who else would bury them and bring flowers or you know, pray on their graves? So when we talk to Jasna Đuričić, who is actress, and I have to mention Jasna, who is amazing actress. She's from Serbia, which I didn't choose her because she's from Serbia. I choose her because she's the best actress. But it's also important to say how brave as a person she is to be in this film and knowing how much bad reactions she could receive in her country. So also Boris Isaković, who's playing Ratko Mladić, he had also very difficult, how should I say, to say yes to this kind of film, it meant that people are really, really, really brave because they were putting their life in danger. Especially Mladić is considered hero in Serbia. So these wonderful actors helped me to make this film. Without them, it wouldn't be, it would not be so strong. And Jasna's scene in finding the bodies was really one of the strongest, where we all behind the camera were crying and people were silent through the whole shooting of that day, as if these bodies are real, and they had such a huge respect. And all crew, I must say, as I said, we had 9 European countries involved in production, because we couldn't find money in our country, so we had to go through European co-production. All people who were working on a film were aware that they are making something which is more than a film. For all of them was kind of duty. They wanted to make this film. And even we had a lot of obstacles and a lot of problems, not only political, but also we, as a Bosnia, is not making enough films. There are many things which we have to invent, which are normal for countries they work in, and they still never complained, and they were really trying their best to make this film.
And you actually already answered one other question while you were talking about this. Now, there was a question about the actress Jasna Đuričić and the fact that she's Serbian. And I know you don't cast your actors based on what their ethnic background is. You choose the best actors, Boris Isaković also. So that question was actually about the blowback that they received. So you already answered that. We should mention Izudin Bajrović is an amazing actor as well. The performances are just astounding and stunning. I just wanted, I think Emir had to leave.
Yes, Emir had to leave. He sent his best to everyone. He had some family obligations. I have one question from another Columbia colleague, and I want to ask it. This is Amr Sabic El Reyes. She's affiliate with Harriman now and has award-winning memoir out about her own survival of genocide in Bihać. She has a question for you, Jasmila, and I want to ask this question because it's really relevant. Given this film that you have made, what opportunities do you see that it will change the radicalizing mindsets of Americans? As we have seen in the United States in recent days and months, violence and lies are being normalized. And so this event comes in the midst of some real reckoning here in America.
If I understood the question correctly, I will start with situation of filmmaking in France. They invest a lot of money into film culture. They have film in their curriculums for kids. When there is a new film, there is a line of people watching it. Very complicated films, art films, also blockbusters, but also a lot of European and French films. And when they had elections and Marine Le Pen was about to get elected, I was thinking, if she wins, it means that all this money for culture were for nothing. Because then it means that people didn't, that nothing changed, that people can be right-wing and fascist, even if they are watching good arts. But she didn't win. And I was thinking, maybe it's because they are watching good films, because they have narratives which are complicated in their heads. What is happening in what was happening in Yugoslavia, and I think a lot of similarities with US today, is that our narratives were too simple. That we also had good films, but also had a huge propaganda that was describing things black and white. And this is something that films with complicated narratives, with different perspectives, can open in people's brains. So I think films and arts, if they are offered to people, they can make us less radical or more sensible towards others, or more empathic, or I just believe in these things. I did change through touch with culture and with films, and like Sandra said, we were all influenced by propaganda, and to be able to get out of this, films were very important tool.
And I want to, before I give the word to Tanya, I don't know if you want to, there's a lot more questions, unfortunately, that will have to remain unanswered, important questions. And I want to thank everyone for their contributions. We will need to start wrapping it up soon, but I want to ask our two other remaining panelists to please chime in on any of this issue, if there's something else you want to add as our conversation here develops. So please feel free to turn your mics on and comment. There were a few other questions about your decision to make Aida the protagonist. Catherine Baker, another colleague of ours, has asked about this, specifically because, in fact, there were no female translators in the safe zone at the time. So why was it important to make the woman and the mother a protagonist in this context? of the story. And this is something that you've actually addressed and been asked quite a bit, especially in the Bosnian media. And in one of your interviews, it was framed through the question of feminism. Is this a feminist film? And quite a few people have received it and deemed it a feminist film. And your response to that was interesting because I am paraphrasing, but I believe you said something to the effect of everything I do is feminist one way or another. So do you want to address this a little more for our audiences here?
Yes, I will not go into theory much, but I will just say I am feminist and I'm observing world and films and art in this way. And I think it is a feminist film because it is showing war in a completely different, from completely different angle, and showing its unspectacular side of it that I already mentioned, and also the from woman perspective, all these men and heroes look ridiculous, and all this war energy is energy of sociopaths, and this is what I really wanted to show. War is good only to psychopaths and sociopaths. The other people are involved in it involuntarily.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Tanya, did you want to read those couple of questions?
Yes, there's somebody, it appears more than one person. We are tuned in from The Hague, Netherlands. Thanks for having us. Question: with the lack of political will of the European nations to address the stalemate in BIH, have you considered ways to bring your movie to the larger European audience, university scholars, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, Corona is now making problems for cinema release. Film will be at Rotterdam Film Festival in Netherlands in a few days. But cinema releases in Europe will wait springtime or better days. We are obliged by European laws to have film first in cinema and then online. So I really hope this will happen. But I'm looking forward to show it, especially in Netherlands, because Srebrenica is big trauma for Netherlands as well.
With respect to the Netherlands, there's a comment and question about the character of the Dutch UN commander Harriman and Franken are depicted dominantly in the movie, while Franken's character seems crystallized around his relentless and pitiless attitude toward people during the fall. Harriman's character is more indecisive and elusive and even displaying emotions at times. Can you say something about this decision, and particularly about the ethical considerations in producing a fictional yet humane portrait of Harriman's?
Look, I tried to talk to Harriman and Franken. They didn't want to talk to me because I really wanted to meet them, to feel them, how they are in life, in real life, but they didn't want to talk to me. So I had to talk to people who knew them. And I was talking to survivors, also to UN people, but very helpful for me was David Harland, who worked for United Nations, and he made a final report on Srebrenica. He was talking to them a lot about what happened, and every detail of July 11 and before and after, he was asking, them directly. So then I made, of course, video footage from YouTube also tells a lot. And I made this, my vision of who they were. And many people who knew them say it's quite truthful, because it was like this person explained. Harriman was, yes, some people call him, some people say that he was really lost there. He was, I even heard, I can't prove it, but very serious person from Netherlands told me that when army tested Harriman, they are always making these fake hostage situations and something like troubled situations. And he didn't pass test, even in exercises in the army. And that person was sent to such a hard place, which was Srebrenica. Intentionally or not, that is another discussion.
With this, I think there's still so many comments and unanswered questions. Fortunately, we will try to save them and pass them on to Jasmila, just so you can see the range of reactions and wonderful comments. And I did see a comment that said that there were many women translators during the Bosnian War, and of course, that was absolutely the case. But I was talking specifically about this final few days when the safe zone in Srebrenica fell, where I believe it was male interpreters left. But with this, we need to start wrapping it up. And I wanted to solicit some final thoughts from all our participants, Velma, Sandra, and then Jasmila. Is there anything that we didn't touch upon that you still wanted to say? Please feel free. The floor is yours. Velma?
For one more time, I would like to say that for us, this is really historical film. I would say that Jasmila really did choose the right time to do it. I'm going to mention that in next couple of months, we are also expecting 2 new reports done by government of Republika Srpska related to Srebrenica genocide and the siege of Sarajevo. And we do believe, and I strongly support this film as a way how we will fight against these kind of situations we will have in our recent history. Also, yes, for us at Post-Conflict Research Center, we would be hopefully able to organize a bunch of different workshops and screenings and bring young people from all around the region of Western Balkans. Hopefully we will do this with Jasmila sometimes, and we will be able to test it in non-formal classrooms, how this film will leave the impact. I've been there when Jasmila did first screening with the youth, and I've been there when Jasmila did screening with women of Srebrenica. And one more time, it was extremely moving. I believe that she's in some way a pioneer who really did, beside the genocide of Srebrenica, also did so much related to sexual violence and rape and transgenerational trauma. Let's not forget that after her film Grbavica, federal part of Bosnia adopted a law for civil victims of war, and some women victims of rape have been able to claim reparations. This is the contribution she did, beside many others. So yeah, this is my final. Thank you so much, Jasmila, and thank you everybody for organizing.
Thank you so much, Velma, for your thoughts. Sandra?
Thank you, Velma.
I will be really short. Thank you again for the invitation. I really hope that the movie will be seen by the broad public in the region. It has really a cathartic impact on people. I really hope that the Jasmila and other artists will continue making art which is relevant for our societies in terms of facing with the past, because at this point, I'm afraid that they are the only island of freedom and responsibility towards the past. And I assume that Jasmila is probably very tired of making movies about our past, but I hope that she will continue, because her contribution is really such an important thing for all of us. And thank you again, and thank you for organizing this panel.
Thank you so much, Sandra, for all your thoughts, and I like how you put it, cathartic impact. And in fact, if I can give a quick summary before I give the final word to Jasmila and to Tanya, it's what's emerged in this conversation is the recognition, both from our audience and from our panelists, of the affective and emotional importance of how films affect us and what they do, but also of the actual real change, systematic change that Velma just suggested interested as well, which Jasmila has already achieved with her earlier films, we will continue to watch. And I do want to point out that as much as this film is making the case for the importance of bearing witness, it is also a cautionary tale on another level that I quickly want to mention, of using media, including film, as a tool of that hateful propaganda. And that is something that is most definitely happened. And we see traces of that in this film as well. Ratko Mladić, when we see him in his scenes, he's constantly directing himself. He's the director of this sort of TV or movie in his own head about himself, which I saw as a very cautionary reminder of how media can be used in, unfortunately, very effective and convincing ways to further spread hate. So with that, we see it to this day. Many people live in alternate realities where they have their own facts that are not facts, and we have to continue fighting and addressing, fighting for the truth. And I will end with that, and thank you, Jasmila, once again for your film and for being here with us. And I'll give you a final word, and then Tanya will close it out. Please let us know if there was anything we didn't get to address that you wanted to touch upon.
No, thank you very much. And I have to say that I'm really happy so many women are there, because it's a main force that I believe in. You know, mothers of Srebrenica were the ones who were really making a huge difference in our country, because they were the ones who said, we will not seek for revenge, we will continue life together. They, thanks to them and other individuals, Memorial Center was built in Potocari. Bosnian politicians wanted to put it in Tuzla, and they said no, we want it there, and it was historical decisions. And they made many, many historical decisions for our country. And I would really love that we find a way to I don't know the exact English words, but I think they deserve a Nobel Prize for Peace, to give that award some dignity. I really think they are amazing force in our country, as well as many women. And I have here all of you to thank. Really, you do amazing work in our region. And as I hear, Sandra, you are even further away doing your amazing work. So this is a force I believe in. And I have to mention that now, as Emir said, I have to use this opportunity to say that film is Bosnian candidate for Oscar, for Academy Award. And we are trying to find some support to have promotion, because film doesn't have distribution. It's film which is very difficult to distribute because of the subject, but everybody who sees it has really good response. So I really believe that film will be watched by US audience as well. So yes, contact us for support.
Congratulations on this, by the way. That's a major achievement. Can I mention the Variety article? Is that okay that I mentioned? Just the other day, Variety, a major trade publication, American, when it comes to film industry, has predicted that Quo Vadis Aida will be one of the films shortlisted in the foreign language category out of something like 90 or 100 films. When will we know the shortlist of 10 films?
It's February 9.
All right, so fingers crossed.
Thank you.
So Jasmila, Harriman will send out an email from you to everyone who signed up about how to get in touch and support. I can't say enough. Thank you. Thank you, Jasmila, for being so generous and sharing this film with the Harriman Institute at Columbia University and working with us to make this happen. Suffice to say that everybody on this panel I have known for years, who've been doing this work forever. Dijana is a great friend and colleague of the Harriman Institute, and we're so delighted that she offered to be the moderator today. I've known Sandra and Velma both for a very long time. Their work precedes them, follows them. People know who they are and what they stand for. And they are the reason, as you point to, Jasmila, they're women changing the world and doing right by human beings and providing for dignity and respect. This is an incredible event. We had over 1,000 people signed up, surely to watch the film, no doubt. It's been celebrated online. People were very excited in anticipation. We're honored by screening it. We wish you luck. I feel strongly the wind is at your back in the Academy Award category for foreign films. And please stay in touch. I also want to thank Aida Cherkes for reconnecting us, Jasmila. We have to give her a big shout out. And I understand that the UK ambassador to BIH, Matthew Field, a terrific ambassador and a great supporter of Bosnia, has been watching with us. You should urge Ambassador Field to help you screen it in London or UK, and maybe he can help you, Jasmila. Thanks very much to our Harriman staff who worked really hard, Carly Jackson, Alexander Turek, who's here with us, and to all the participants, but everyone who signed up. We so appreciate your support and being with us today here in New York and wherever you are in the world. Let's keep fighting the good fight, everyone, and everyone bring your light to the world for peace and peace building and human rights. Signing off here in New York. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye. Thanks everybody so much.
Thanks everybody.
Bye.